just apologize. We'll air this out now.
Apologize for what?
Apologize. They're both black.
Yeah.
Whoa.
All right, I was seeing someone wasn't black saying it was made it an issue. That's what I was getting at.
Calm down, buddy. Calm down. I said it.
Okay, that's fine.
All right.
You lied. That was actually the best one we've had so far.
All right, welcome to the Piece by Piece podcast. I'm your host, William Parham, and today we are here to talk about emotional intelligence and masculinity. And I'm joined by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna take a stab. 7 or 8 new guests. So it's nice to all have you here.
You set up the roster, bro.
I'm gonna pass. I know I didn't count though. I'm gonna pass the mic around and everyone just introduce themselves. So starting with my 2 co-hosts, we have.
You know, it's your boy, the boy with the marine cut, Takai Hogan.
You already know what's going on. It's mess.
All right, now pass it to whoever. We have.
I'm Brandon.
We have 7 new guests.
Yo, I'm David.
What's up? It's Nadal.
Stephanie.
I'm Naomi.
Meer.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julian Resio.
And one more guest.
Did you say?
No, here's his name.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so for today's topic, we are talking about masculinity and emotional intelligence because as time has proceeded, things have become a little more confused in terms of defining what is masculine. And on top of that, as people have grown older and maybe a little more antisocial because of the pandemic, emotional intelligence has dropped as well. Now, would anyone like to give their take on what they've observed or seen in either category?
People just don't know how to talk. Like, it even comes down to like studying. So when I mean this, it's like, say for example, the classes that take actual thought, like no offense to like the other like class, say for example, organic chemistry, physics, all the courses that take some kind of like, I'm not gonna call it critical thinking because that makes me sound callous, but I would say the classes that take some kind of effort, like, damn, this is getting worse, y'all. I ain't gonna lie.
No,
So anyway,
it is critical
the classes,
thinking because it's all analytical.
Yeah.
You don't need to have an opinion. It is fact and fact alone.
Yeah.
So you don't need a lot of communication skills or any, I hate saying this, but any kind of personality for it.
What, for like STEMs?
Yeah, you're spitting out a bunch of answers.
Yeah, but sometimes when you gotta study for like things like I don't know about engineering, but I would say like math, chemistry, bio, like so it helps you study in a group though, like for the most part. That's what I'm saying. So when we're talking about the social aspects, a lot of people don't know how to even like start a conversation, let alone even have like possible like even making a good study group. I just noticed people here are honestly terrible at social skills. It's actually, I don't even know how people are even alive at this school if it wasn't for their parents.
A communications major, low key, we dog all the STEM majors, talking about how most of them do not really know how to hold a conversation.
No, that's true. No, that's true. I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
STEM majors, for some reason, I don't understand why STEM majors are like that. I feel like the older generation of STEM majors, there's no way in hell they were like that. It's just like,
no, because they had proper communication skills through COVID and especially lockdown. Everybody was isolated.
Yeah.
So communication happened through a screen. And especially with these newer generations who are iPad babies.
Discord kids.
Yeah.
The worst. Scum. All y'all. I'm just,
That is like a good observation because I know with interacting kids growing up with iPads, there's no actual feedback because they're just talking to or looking at an iPad and they're getting all this stimulation. But let's say the kid speaks, iPad doesn't respond back. Kid could possibly grow up to being mute, meaning like he's not going to know how to interact with other people because he's so used to getting stimulated but not getting anything back in return.
I feel like with the whole mute thing though, as long as the parent is properly socializing the child, but that all depends on the parent.
I feel like
That's
iPad's
the
an
other
escape
bad
though.
thing. Yeah, it's totally an escape because it was just thrown on the kid. Hey, I don't want to take care of you. I'm busy. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. Go to your iPad, go to your screen, and sit for hours.
Yeah, but what a lot of people need to understand is that a lot of these kids are hopping on the internet, they're doing so because that's where they feel comfortable, right? So what happens is that the parents, they're out, they're at work, they're not really raising their kids, they're throwing them in front of TVs, throwing them in front of iPads, and these kids become comfortable, not only just having cordial and casual relationships, friendships, and just, talking to people casually online, they're also getting used to making themselves vulnerable to people online. Some people exclusively go online just to vent and make themselves vulnerable because they can't do it in real life. So what's happening is that we're now seeing a self-fulfilling prophecy of people You know what I'm saying? They're giving their kids these things, right? And the point of giving it to them is to pacify them, right? And what happens is that they're pacified, but in a negative way. They can't now go out, they can't now express themselves in the real world. So a lot of it the root of it is, a failed society where we're not really like teaching kids how to, go out and like be themselves. We're putting them in front of screens and TVs, and these screens and TVs are raising them.
Do you feel like it's because it's not allowing them to actually cultivate a personality?
Yeah, exactly.
Like they're not having true interaction.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the kids, like elementary school kids who grew up during COVID, and how they are going to potentially communicate?
It's even worse for them because for us,
Don't get me started on Coco Melon.
for us, we grew up like, in-person learning, you know what I'm saying? We learned, a level of social, competence. But a lot of kids who are starting school in kindergarten, they're starting online, you know what I'm saying? Some of my siblings started school during, the COVID times, or they were in like first, second grade during the COVID period. And what they're doing is, number one, their attention span it just depletes to zero. Because what happens is they're watching this boring teacher on the screen, and then new tab, cool math games.
There's
the whole
no
class.
repercussions for attention.
that work period.
Exactly.
You're supposed to be like a stalemate in order to like have your own creativity. They're missing that entirely because it's just instant gratification. There's no delay in between.
Exactly. And with the internet, we have the whole world at our fingertips. And this is why a lot of people don't really understand this, but the internet isn't for kids.
No,
The internet is
I
not
agree with
for
that.
kids.
Like I miss when they had Leapfrog because it wasn't connected to the internet, but it was a way of like introducing. It wasn't. You had to like buy the game separately as a digital cartridge, and once you like complete that lesson, you buy the next one. But it had no connection to Wi-Fi, so you couldn't connect whatever you wanted. There was no temptation. There were no ads. But I wanted to mention this, by the way, because I didn't say this prior. For people who don't know, according to the Oxford Dictionary, emotional intelligence is the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. Just to get that out there for people to understand better.
And simplify it for the layman.
Okay. So being aware of others and how they feel and how you feel when you're interacting together. Being able to make conversation, have discussion, have debate, and let it flow casually, not like have a stalemate of just staring at each other and making it awkward, like old STEM majors, as Mess would say.
Bro, I really hate them, and I'm a STEM major. So, y'all all right sometimes.
Does anyone have anything else to say about emotional
Well,
intelligence?
you guys keep coming after STEM majors. I'm right here, bro.
I'm a STEM major, bro. And I
No, you
suck,
aren't.
bro.
I'm taking enough STEM classes.
self-aware, bro.
They be thinking I'm a whatever major.
Yeah.
They be thinking I'm like MC, and I'm like,
Yeah, I used to be a STEM
they be
major.
thinking I'm a mass media major. And I'm like, oh, I can talk.
But all right,
That's the understanding.
For
That
real.
it's only communication.
that
It's only communication majors who know how to actually hold a conversation, who know how to talk.
I think it's humanities majors on it. Like I'm a social work and psych major, and I just feel like everyone I've met in my major has been pretty good at communicating. However, it depends on passion, because like some people are really passionate about one thing, especially in social work, and they don't know how to agree to disagree with other people. And I feel like this can also be connected with masculinity, because a lot of times like there is no agree to disagree when it comes to the traditional role of being masculine, because men are not taught to back down. And that is no fault of their own. Like that's why I'm like emphasizing that it's a lesson that we're all taught how to act in society. I don't think it's a biological thing. I think it's a social thing. And I feel like that ties into the whole emotional intelligence thing, where it's just like, why would men want to be emotionally intelligent when they were taught the opposite? You feel me?
Express themselves.
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of want to go into now, having the definition right in front of me. APA Dictionary says, masculinity is possession of social role behaviors that are presumed to be characteristics of a boy or a man, as contrasted with maleness. And right now, that's the issue, is that we don't know what a man actually is, because men, as Naomi just mentioned, growing up, don't express themselves. So how are you going to define something if it can't even express itself? That's like looking at a chalkboard with nothing on it and then asking me to solve the problem. You don't know what's there. So would anyone like to take their experience with masculinity?
I was gonna talk about like the social norms of like my major as an art major, as a visual arts major. Yeah. It's interesting because I think with visual arts, it's more like depending on what like you specialize in, because like each specialization carries along a culture. Like if you're like in printing and fashion, for example, like it's much more social. You're going to like fashion shows. You have to talk to all these models. Like there's like lots and lots of socialization that goes into some of them. But like for example, with my major, like animation, like it's very now, especially after COVID, like you can work from home. Like my professor, he's in Canada, he works for Titmouse, and he just like made the show for Netflix. And he's teaching us like here in Baltimore, but he's like all the way in Canada, and he's been there for like 13 years or something. So like, it's pretty wild. Like a lot of like the people in my major aren't very social, but like if I go and talk to like music majors are also pretty social.
I didn't even think about it like that. Like it does depend on your career in terms of your environment. Yeah. Like so for fashion majors, like you're going to be around a lot of people in the business and you need to talk and network. Whereas if you're like a STEM major who's going to be in a lab all day, you might talk to one or two people, but you're focused on your work for the majority of your like.
But my thing is, dude, no matter what major you're in, bro, you gotta be able to know how to talk, bro. Like, I'm sorry. If you're a physics major and you're absolutely like, even physics majors, man, like, bro, like the way they see it, because like, even if they're like socially recluse, like they still have some type of niche. How are you gonna talk? How are you even gonna make physics jokes, bro? Like, you have to have some kind of communication. Like, you know what I'm saying? I just hate how like some people completely forget that, like, how to talk to people, and then they like bitch and whine about it. That's really what gets me pissed. Like,
We're not ready for the real world.
No, they're not, and that's what I say. I'm like, bro, like, especially computer science majors, bro. Like, some of them kind of be blowing me. I'm like, bro, take a shower flat out first, and then get some skills.
With my major, so like, my major is like political science, right? So I have to like be like social. I have to talk to everyone. I have to have connections, know everybody. It is discussion, and that's the thing. And I've always been like the one to talk, and I feel like I've always learned, because when I was a kid, I didn't know how to talk to people. But then as I got older, started meeting more people, I'm thinking like, okay, so this is how you're supposed to talk, you're supposed to act, say this, don't say that. There's a time and a place for it.
Yeah.
But then I noticed even some people in my major, they just don't even know how to do that. Because like I'm very like observant about things. Like I'll see like people's like body language or like how they talk to one certain group of people versus another. I'm like, okay, do this, do that. Should I go to here and say to them, or should I do something differently? But like, I just do what I do. I just talk because I've always just been a natural talker. But like when I see like other types of people in my major, like they just don't know. They say what they want to say and that's it. They don't know what else to talk about. They don't have like anything interesting. They don't have any like stories, stuff like that. I've always got stories to talk about, but none of them like have nothing to say.
Right. And on that, and on and on that note, Nadal, as you mentioned, it's very important to be able to talk to people. That's something that my dad and my uncle. Well, my uncle's he's a close friend of my dad. I just call him my uncle. I know him that well personally. He's always he's a salesman at a flea market, and when we've spoken on the phone, he said, "Listen, I don't make much money, but I know how to talk to people, and I think it's important to, always consider what other people have to say and, be respectful." And I think, this is going back to a topic of masculinity. Like, you've seen many common influencers, specifically like Andrew Tate, as well as Myron Gaines, who runs a podcast as well. Like, those people, like a lot of people depict them as toxic masculinity, right? And I think and yes, I believe most of the things he says can be, quote, outrageous. However, his purpose is for men to be masculine and specifically not to tolerate BS. And so,
Define toxic masculinity?
Yes. So for me, my definition of toxic masculinity is someone who tries to be too overpowering without being considering of others. That for me is my definition of toxic masculinity. If I'm and this goes back to, my life, specifically middle school to high school to college, is that, when I was in high school, my social skills weren't great. When I was in middle school, they were high. So it went from high to low, back to high in college. And so in middle school, I was very much considered a simp, especially. But then in high school, I was very much considered a simp in middle school. In middle school, So a simp. So the acronym SIMP, for those who don't know, is someone who of someone who gives too much attention and validation to someone who's not giving the same thing back. That's what a simp is. And so I was very much like that when I was in middle school. And then in high school, I just did sports. I was on the rowing team, had great communication, did my work, had good grades. And then back in college, I think I've learned to pick up the positive things about people. And so I've learned that, even though no one's perfect, but I think it's important to, even if, you may consider them to be, quote, a bad person, learn the positive sides of them and have them influence you. Because I think a high value person is someone who isn't necessarily 100% in one thing, but maybe 60, 70% in everything. I think that's very important in life. And being social helps with networking and being at that high level.
Specifically, you said your communication skills were high in elementary school, correct?
Yeah,
Low
middle school,
in
yeah.
Middle, high, back up and high in high school.
Back up in college.
College? Okay.
Yes.
Do you feel like they improved middle to high school? Did you play more sports in high school than
I was
you
on
did
the
middle
rowing
school?
team. I was on the rowing team in high school. So I was very locked in.
Like that team building.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that helped your socialization, your ability to communicate with people who you normally would not?
Yeah, absolutely. It really taught me discipline. I think rowing requires a lot of discipline. I think the training hours in spring break, we were training 2 days. We were training 4 hours, twice a week, 2 days every day a week. And I think with that discipline, right, I was able to translate here to college. Like in college, I come here, I do what I'm supposed to do. However, I've met great people here, and I'm not rude to anyone. I don't cause fights or anything. I don't cause silly arguments. However, I think, as you said, rowing really helps with that, and also makes sure helps men be in shape.
You have to communicate, or
absolutely
your team's not going to get anywhere.
Absolutely.
How do we feel about going back to the kids who grew up in quarantine and were not able to be on sports teams? How do we feel that is going to affect them moving into their middle school career, into high school, while sports are finally coming back? How is that communication going to look?
Well, to further that question, I have a brother. He's in middle school, but he was in high school. In his freshman year of high school was during the pandemic, and so what happened is that he and I are completely opposites. So I am fine with being on my own and functioning on my own. He needs to get outside and talk to people. So for what happened during quarantine, my social skills, basically the little bit of social skills I had, just like that, Thanos snapped out of existence. And for him, he's just like, I need to get out of here.
I was going to say, do you think because he didn't have communications, I don't want to blanket statement this, but do you feel like because he didn't have as well developed communication skills to begin with, it just made him even more reclusive, more internal?
No.
He wasn't able to express how he was feeling, what he needed to do. It was just action-based?
No, the thing is that he likes to talk to people. Okay. So he has to go out and talk to people. If he stays in the house too long, he's just like, I've been in this house for like 5 hours. I need to get out. I need to get out of here. And so what happened was that he was just, quarantine, you couldn't go anywhere. So any chance he got, he's like, I'm going to sit outside because I can't be in this house.
Can't be in this cage anymore.
Yes. I'm just like, what do you mean? And so what I learned from this was that it's not necessarily the act of actually talking to people, it's the potential of actually talking to people. And for a lot of people, especially during quarantine, it wasn't the fact that they couldn't go outside, but it was the fact that they weren't allowed to go outside. And so I'm not a very social person, but I try to force myself to talk to people. And so I'm trying to understand this whole social thing just like everyone else. And so He's just like, yeah, I had to talk to this. It's like, there's this guy from Nigeria I just started talking to. I'm like, how do you know a guy from Nigeria? Even the only places you go are to soccer practice, school, and home. So, I met him on Omegle. I'm like, Omegle?
I'm not touching that.
And he started.
When you're ready, I got you.
And so, for some people, the only way they could actually talk to people was during quarantine was online. And so that's where he just went from going to the mall to just say, yeah, I met this girl who lives in Florida. I'm like, Florida?
Is this on Omegle?
Yeah.
It's crazy online games, man. That shit is like.
Oh, he was a menace. Don't even get me started on what the kind of stuff he did online.
How long was he like doing this for? Was this like for like the whole time quarantine was going on? Or was it
like his use of meeting people online started because of quarantine.
Really?
Because he couldn't go anywhere. So he just started using Omegle. He started doing all this stuff. Like, because he used to use it. But after quarantine, he's talking to someone new every day.
Because that's the thing. When quarantine happened, like for me, it was weird. So like, like I tell myself I'm a social person, but I have my days where I'm pretty introverted.
Yeah.
But like when it happened, like I'm online, I'm doing school and shit, then I'm on Discord. Because I got my friends there. And then like, but like I'm on like little I'm on like sports servers and stuff. I'm talking with people. And it was weird because like we're just all talking and shit. Like I'm thinking like I'm having fun talking online with my friends every day, but I'm thinking like it's becoming like I said, every day. And I'm like, this is not good. Like I need to get out. Like personally, because like I can't be confined into one area.
Becoming a routine.
It was. And it was like I was kind of going mad because I was thinking like after like the first like month or two of COVID, I was like, this is stupid. Like can I just like go out of my house and do something? That's why I think I don't know how it is for like other people, but like sometimes for me it's like I need to like do something. I can't just sit around and do nothing. I have to move around. Like my body won't just let me be like, we can just sit around for hours and do something.
I went fishing like a lot. That's the only thing I can think of.
Well, Steph, to answer your question in terms of that relation from middle school to high school sports, I think it's either going to be a greater difference between people who were social and people who weren't, or there'll be some outliers along the way. Like, yes, there might be some people who were super social and they became antisocial, and then there are people who were antisocial and they became very social. I think whenever there's some type of endeavor or challenge that humans face, we get creative and we innovate. So as things have happened because of quarantine, we've noticed, what is it called when you're on streaming? Streaming has like become very popular now because of quarantine. It's almost like watching a TV show. But I'll say in terms to answer your question, Nadal, sorry, I almost forgot your name for some reason.
Sandboy.
People who are social need that interaction, and I don't care what anyone says, a screen can't replace personal interaction. Like us talking, us talking together right now, I feel is a lot more special than if we were to be on like Zoom or Skype. Right. Like I guarantee if we were all behind a screen, we'd be doing something else. Our attention would not be totally here. Like, yeah, personally, I'd be like looking at my phone, answering texts, and not like be in this message right now.
I'd probably be taking a nap, bro. Especially
Discord
I don't care.
So the thing about it, right, is that we agree that like there are negative effects, but it depends. It really depends on the person because for me, right, when quarantine happened, I spent the first couple months, diving into the news, diving into, things of the world, finding out about certain things that I didn't know about, kind of just like expanding my horizons, learning. And that's one of the good things about it. A lot of the times when we're in school, especially for people who are like extremely busy, we're kind of out of the loop when it comes to things that are happening like in the world and politics and things of that nature, things that people should know about. And so for the people who weren't necessarily just on Discord or on Omegle, a lot of people were really learning about how the world actually works, and the internet is a double-edged sword. There's, being idle on the internet, like talking to random people halfway across the world, or there's learning about money, learning about taxes, learning about, other countries, learning about people's experiences in those countries, So that's what I did for the first couple months. Then like summer 2020, I started like going online, Instagram, group chats, Discord. And then I was introduced to a whole nother like reality, because when you go to the Instagram like group chats, especially like in the anime community or, that community. Yeah. You'll find, I don't know if it's specifically that community, but what you'll find is you'll find a lot of people who are, a lot of at-risk youth, a lot of people that are dealing with depression, a lot of people that are dealing with trauma, a lot of people that are dealing with anxiety. And you'll go onto the group chats, you'll go to sleep, you'll wake up, and they're still on the group chat, just as active as they were before. They're on the group chat for 12 hours a day, trauma dumping, talking about the things they go through, sending, self-harm pictures, things of that nature. They're opening up to people that they've never met before, and for me, that was a learning experience because I never knew that people like that actually obviously I knew they existed, but it wasn't a reality for me until I actually met and talked with these people. These people were using the internet as a coping mechanism. I met someone who was addicted to the internet, quite literally, and they used it as a way to distract themselves from the pain that they were feeling inside, And so while it's not good to use the internet that way, it was their way of keeping themselves from being even more self-destructive, of engaging in even more self-destructive practices, Yeah, they're mitigating it. Exactly, that's a perfect word. And so I was learning about all these different people, and I was gaining a greater perspective about how the world actually works, And so I say all this just to say, yes, the internet, it did take away a lot of people's ability to live in the real world. However, there is a lot to learn on the internet, from people. There are a lot of perspectives to look into when you're on the internet. There are a lot of different experiences to, see for yourself when you're on the internet. And so really it depends on the person. How do you use the internet? Are you using it as an escape? Are you using it as an excuse not to go out and actually make friends and actually have those real life experiences? Or are you leveraging it to gain information, to gain knowledge,
See, another thing about it is before the internet, people didn't have they didn't have the ability to congregate with these people. Congregate? What I'm saying is the internet gave certain groups of people a platform, that they didn't really have a platform to speak about otherwise, people would go and interact with their type of people, but I don't know how to say this in not very objective way. You know what I mean?
So speak how you feel.
I'm just saying certain groups of people, who they may not feel well represented, you know what I mean? In a majority of population, now they have that platform, and now they can interact with each other and, just communicate and stuff like that.
So what it seems like it really is teaching people how to use the internet.
It's a tool.
It's a tool, not an end. You know what I'm saying? It's a means to an end, not necessarily that end.
It's not your friend. It can be a double.
It could be. It's a double-edged sword. Yeah.
It can be if you allow it to.
No, it
by nature. Depends on how you use it.
The thing is, internet.
It's a double-edged sword. So there's a good and a bad side.
Right. Oh, my
So by nature, it is a good thing and a bad thing. We all rely on the internet. You can't live without using it. You can't work in most fields. Most high-paying fields force you to use the internet. You're not able to do your homework unless you're able to connect to the internet.
Check.
What?
Shag is crazy. Bro, why are you snitching on us, bro?
I need an explanation.
Why are you snitching, bro? Come on.
I mean, Shag already snitches on us. Shag snitches on us.
Numerate.
This is what I want to get into now. So we've all addressed the problems we've seen with emotional intelligence and a little bit of masculinity. But now let's start talking about solutions. What do you guys think is best to fix that? So for masculinity, I think what is easier and what should be done for men is that we should be able to express ourselves, but without, popping off in a way that just seems childish. No one wants to talk to a man who's throwing a temper tantrum. Yeah. Or, waving his body language everywhere, just being super expressive. But instead, maybe this is just a far-fetched idea. There should be a step-by-step protocol, perhaps, assess the situation in yourself, make sure, are you at a calm rate, is your heart rate high or low, and then take 3 deep breaths, and then say what bothers you the most, but be mindful of will this offend my partner or said person in that situation?
We didn't really talk about masculinity a lot.
We really didn't. But
so I'm just trying to understand, you're talking about solutions to certain things, what?
Well, I'll define masculinity based on these definitions. So I did psychology. This is the sociology definition.
Okay.
According to encyclopedia.com. Masculinity refers to social roles, behaviors, and meanings prescribed for men in any given social society at any one time. As such, it emphasizes gender, not biological sex, and the diversity that identifies of identities among different groups of men. So to break this down, masculinity doesn't just refer to gender. It's a way of how you act around others and how you present yourself, so to speak. So now that we have that out the way, would anyone like to talk more about masculinity?
I certainly would. So, we allowed to go into.
Yeah, go. Speak
All right.
freely. Speak free around the cabinet.
All right. If this goes south,
your words, not mine.
there are words.
Communism.
Okay.
So, anyways, so when you guys speak of toxic masculinity, and if you're saying there's toxic masculinity, then there has to be toxic femininity. Because if we're saying that there's toxic masculine traits, then there has to be toxic feminine traits.
Can we define this again?
Help
toxic
us
masculine?
understand. Like, what would you say is like a toxic feminine trait?
That's a good question. It's a very, very good question.
I feel like there's a fine line between toxic and stereotypical.
Ooh. Let's get into that. What do you mean?
Respectfully.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I was gonna try
I can say one.
What do you mean by that?
Someone give me your mic.
I was trying to get into something. You guys kept undermining me.
I mean, there's a long side.
I don't think something that's necessarily toxic in a female isn't also toxic in a male. Like manipulation, for example, is it in both male and female? So I think it's just toxicity in general, but we call masculine and feminine toxicity for one of the
Just
other.
based on traits.
But I think it's just, I don't know.
It's just toxic behaviors. I feel like it's more characterized by who is doing it.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get into.
I will say my toxic traits, I can be very passive aggressive. I can be very manipulative, but that can go also for toxic men.
Yeah.
It's just some characteristics and traits are more dominantly, I don't want to say portrayed, expressed by men and then expressed by women.
Where I was trying to go with this was that I don't think there is toxic masculine or feminine traits. It's just that they're toxic people.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're a guy and you have all this bravado and you have the physique of Baki, you act like Yujiro Hanma.
I'm gonna need somebody to explain that for me.
For those who don't know, if you don't watch anime in the community, Baki and Yujiro Hanma, they're two fighters. Baki is one who's super muscular, super attractive. He's like a typical jock you would think in high school, right?
Okay.
And his father is like the ultimate Chad of Chads. Like no one can beat him in a fight.
Oh, a super Chad.
Yeah, no
We
one can
love a
stop
super
him.
Chad.
He's super muscular. Like no one's more defined than him. So he's like at the pinnacle of douchebag. So to
Yeah,
speak.
but he also kills people because they annoy him. So
That's how when we say pinnacle, like it's to an exaggerated level.
Okay.
So yeah.
what do you mean we all made this? Anyways,
We all made
so
mistakes.
what I'm trying to say is that you may actually have the bravado and actually physically be him. It does not mean that you're allowed to treat people like they don't exist. So that's not toxic masculinity. That's just a toxic person.
Correct.
And so
what are we arguing about?
no, I'm saying there's no such thing as toxic masculinity. There's no such thing as toxic femininity.
But toxic, being toxic.
Yeah,
It's just toxic.
Yeah, it's just people are toxic. So what really happens is that people don't know how to express themselves or how to act. That is the issue. People don't know how to talk to other people. People don't know how to act in public. People just don't know how to be themselves. And so you get people who, you get that guy who goes to the gym every day who doesn't talk to anyone. You ask him a question, I'm sorry, I don't know. Only thing I really care about is my meal plan and how many plates I can bench. And you also get the girl who's too afraid to talk to anyone because all she does is sit in her room and just rant online. That's not toxic masculinity, and it's not toxic femininity. It's just these two people are both toxic. One's a guy, one's a girl. Mm-hmm. It's just neither of them actually know how to talk to people.
I think you pose a really good point, but I think if we erase masculinity altogether, I think it really undermines all the findings that have proceeded before us. And to be more specific, it's at the end of the day, there is sexism and there is power that men hold because they are men. And there are ways in which men use that power, which is toxic masculinity.
Can you explain?
For example, there's a power difference between men and women, right? Do you guys want me to explain that?
Yeah, please explain.
Okay.
I know it, but for the audience.
Yeah. So there's a power difference between men and women because men are seen as better. Yeah. Better than women, more dominant. Yeah. That's why.
In what way?
But that physically, intellectually.
It's a social construct.
It is a social construct. It's very much so a social construct. Yes.
It is the standards that are put into place that specifically benefit white men.
Yes.
They are seen as top.
Yes.
Everything under anyone who is not a white male. Sorry, baby. Anyone who is not a white male is
He's
seen
turning
as
into a tomato.
Anyone who's not a white male is seen as other, is seen as lesser.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you are a black man, white woman, black woman, Asian man.
You're
seen as other just because white men predominantly have more power, more social prowess.
Look at our leaders. Yeah. Period. That's all I have to say. So,
what?
The elitists. All the elites are typically white men. Yeah. Typically.
You can't
our top 1%, who is that? Mostly white men. But yeah, sorry.
More because white people are the majority?
No.
Oh, that's a falsehood.
Is it?
It's actually not true. White people are not the majority.
Look at NFL, for instance.
No, but I understand that, right?
Yeah.
But that's completely different.
Well, I was trying to get just an example from a scale, people.
Well, we're talking about physicality.
Are you talking about in the world?
Franchise?
No, in the U.S.
I'm keeping it small,
Politics.
just as an example. NFL owners, majority of them are white, and having an NFL franchise puts you in the top 5% of earners in America. So to an extent, you have some form of power. But I'm saying but the majority of the NFL, in terms of employees, meaning players and staff, are minorities.
You're making a logic jump, though, aren't you? Just because the majority, just because a majority of a group is a certain thing doesn't mean they have an inherent.
But you were saying the whites were the majority.
Yeah, but just because say most NFL or NBA owners are white, that doesn't mean they have an inherent advantage. Does it?
He's not implying an inherent advantage. He's focusing on a privilege that.
Yeah.
That doesn't.
But it's not dictated on your skin tone. It's dictated based off of that demographic being in a privileged position in that region.
Yeah.
I'm Steve.
Yeah, Steve.
Harvey.
But if a specific group, white or black, in that region has had a history of maintaining control of resources, well then that group will be able to shape that country, that region, that system that they're in to their advantage, simply off of the base that they have all the resources. It's not about the number of people in that demographic that are occupying the space, because you would think, well, in the South, there are more black people, but who are making all the decisions.
White
Majority
people.
of white people who own the property, who are in control of government. If you don't have control within the system you're in, it doesn't matter how many people are there. It just matters who has control.
Yeah.
The essentials.
What I would like to say about that is, for a lot of these positions, don't you vote for them?
The majority of people who vote are white. Because black people and other people of color are discouraged from voting. Why? Because who always wins? Who makes it to the final elections?
Actually, the thing is, we have a very low voter turnout anyway. It's 46%.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
So it's not really an issue of winner or loser. It's just people don't vote.
That's true.
And the districts.
But also, we have to think about how we don't really get to choose who the president is. The Electoral College does. when we try to choose against Donald Trump, 5 million people didn't like he did not win by 5 million people, but he won the electoral college.
Yeah.
You feel me? So like, it's not, we can't judge, we can't say like, oh, well, we vote for the white people, because that's not necessarily true.
It's to prevent a true democracy, but that's a completely different topic. What was our topic originally?
Masculinity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a far cry from masculinity. Anyways, so you said something earlier about men coming off as being physically stronger than women.
No, that's not what I was saying. I was saying that men have more power than women for
And
multiple
you said
reasons.
One of them was that men are stronger than women.
She didn't say that.
No, I wasn't.
Okay, so
saying
can
that.
you relist? Can you relist them, because we went on like a
Tangent.
5-10 minute
Yeah.
tangent? Yeah.
Men are given more power because of the privilege that they have.
Can you name those privileges again? That's
Privileges such as anyone can take over, because there's a lot of examples.
I could say perhaps inherited wealth. Like, I know there's a privilege in America where a woman can't open up a bank account without a male signature.
Sorry.
Like, I've heard about that.
Oh, historic.
Like, historically.
You're not like currently.
Yeah, not currently.
That's
No.
historic.
Historic
Yeah.
base. So like it's a starting point, and then it just snowballs into an effect where like power builds.
Do you know that most rich people don't actually inherit their wealth? They actually made it themselves. Especially
Inherited wealth.
You gotta start, and then it trickles down.
inherited wealth is actually typically lost.
Yeah.
But that's
Right, but
that's
it
still
starts
an argument
somewhere. It
based
still
off
breaks
of the
down.
present. If you're going based off of a system, right? If a system has been in operation for hundreds of years, and that system was majorly controlled by that specific demographic, in the present, these people aren't rich based off of the past, but the system is still geared toward them based off of that group.
I fuck with Steve, bro. Like, I be trying to get this shit across, but he has a language for it.
A good thing that she would mention as a privilege might be that we don't perceive it as a privilege because we're men, but like a lot of women get fucked over in employment. It's easier for an employer, not saying that every employer does this, but it's easier for an employer based off of their appearance, based off of their biases, based off of the fact that women most likely are more likely to get pregnant.
Yeah,
so if they do, that can be a problem within the workplace, and then they might be more geared to hiring a man. Not saying that they will.
No, I understand that is a real thing. There's a reason why.
Yeah, there is a reason why, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's to their benefit. They're still in a disadvantage. It's not your fault, but we still have to acknowledge that they're in a less privileged position.
What I'm trying to say is that there's no real way to really fix that, because a business's bottom line, their mission statement is to maximize profit. And if you really want to get into the fact that businesses are more likely to hire men, it's because men are less likely to try to start a family. They're more likely. So the thing is, what happens if a girl, let's just say a woman, she works for this company, right? You train her for years, 4 years. She's an asset to the company. She makes this company a lot of money, and she decides that she wants to start a family. She's not going to be able to work while she's starting a family. For the most part, they would rather be at home with their kids.
That's a big.
That's very
But here's
very
the thing: that perspective is a privileged position to have, because and this is an empathy part. Like you said, in terms of straight logic, and we're just going streamlining business. Yes, it would be easier to hire a man for a position based off of the things you said. But if you were that woman and you are more qualified than that man getting the job, and you personally don't want to start a family, is it right that you're being judged based off of this person's assumptions of you rather than your skill set?
It's not. But how would you fix that, even if that's
well, then you would hire that person and trust them. That's like, as a business, like we're making a lot of judgments.
Yeah, but this is what a business is going to actually think.
Right.
So, you're a business owner.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it's right. We're saying logically, but we're not saying that's right.
I'm asking you, how would you fix that? Because a business is not just going to trust you.
We're not worried about fixing the business. We're kind of focused on masculinity. I don't want to get too off topic here.
Okay, I was just because you like to ask, you like to talk about solutions.
I do like to get the solution to specifics. I'm only rushing this because we have about 20 minutes before we gotta wrap this up because the room is reserved. 17, thank you. So that's why I gotta speed this up here.
10 minutes.
All right, 10. We're gonna break this down a little quicker then. So,
We can part to it.
are there any last words anyone wants to say before we break into chop time?
Would you like to talk? You haven't talked at all.
Oh, yes, Karla. Would you like to say anything? Anything?
Save it for chop time. Save it for chop time.
This is the last thing.
No, I said that a woman, if we're thinking through the eyes of a business, if a woman gets pregnant, she's going to be more likely or more inclined to want to work. She's going to want to work less hours to support her family.
But there's women who don't have like a person who is like the significant other to maintain them.
That's
So how would you say that if someone who doesn't have the amount of money to pay for like the, you know, if the father's not there, not present, not give money, you think that the business would just say, oh yeah, I'm gonna stop paying this woman a lot or a little bit to maintain that child? Like what are you trying to say?
what I'm trying to say is a business is going to see
Business not care.
they will care if their employee who they trained for many years might work less hours 4 years from when they employ them today.
Are you talking about like when she's pregnant at that moment, or does she have a
So
child?
a business when a business is hiring any person, they're going to look into them as a potential asset long term. We're not just talking 3 years, 4 years. We're talking 10, maybe even 20 years. So the reason why a business hires more men is because they're less likely to just leave.
That's a lot.
I would disagree with that. I would disagree.
We're talking.
I would disagree with that.
Because that's going to take some time to explain, Steve. And
One last thing.
One last thing.
This is not directly, but it's very important to know. Women, especially mothers, make the biggest class of people experiencing homelessness. Take into account all the assumptions that can be made about women not being reliable or not having a desire to put in long hours. That goes in directly to the fact that a lot of women are underemployed, are experiencing a lack of housing because they don't have the ability to provide in the way that they would want to. Not necessarily divorce. There's a lot of factors that go into it than just marginalizing an entire group. Not saying that we are, but when we're saying we need to be effective, we need to be efficient as a business, taking away that human element causes more problems in our society when we are not considerate of the more people behind those issues.
Emotional intelligence at its finest. All right, finishing things up. We're gonna break this down into chop time. This is the part of the podcast where we talk about anything. All bets are off. Anything you want to say is free to go for. Meer, last thing. Is this for chop time? Or is this... Okay. So before we start chop time, I'm gonna get a sync clap. We're all gonna clap together. 3, 2, 1.
Boy, goodbye.
Welcome to chop time. Meer, start us off.
So did you guys hear about the YouTuber who got raided by like a militia service, like the villains from Red Dead Redemption 2? Like it's the same name of the villains from Red Dead Redemption 2. But I forgot the name. This YouTuber got raided by them because Hasbro, the guys who own the Wizards of the Coast, who made Magic the Gathering, accidentally sent him the new set for their cards that are supposed to release in like a couple months or something. And he unboxed them on YouTube because he thought they sent it to him on purpose. And so they raided him with like guns and like threatened to arrest him and like all
over
this shit.
some cards.
Over some cards. And the militia group is banned by the like people can hire them, but the US government cannot use them.
What the fuck?
And they just like there was just like a militia, there's like a Vanguard, like BlackRock. And then it turns out that Vanguard or like one of them owns like 13% of Hasbro or something like that as well. So it's just like very strange.
Stay away from cards. Like I'm just That's too much for some damn trading cards and playing games.
Imagine getting your
I
wife
am
in
a
there for some
card.
trading
Yeah, for
cards.
some
I don't know
trading
what's
cards,
worse,
bro.
bro. That or getting like beat to death by furries.
And one last thing.
Wait, what?
Has an employee
That's my.
who she's a single mother and she has 8 kids and she works for my dad. And she's pretty good.
Hey,
Good for her.
sorry. All right. There are some notes. Do you guys want to go over those, or is that just for another time?
Oh, I at least need another
Another episode?
on this.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's perfectly fine. So what I kind of want to get into now is I feel like there's a lot of stigmas for men in terms of what's deemed right and wrong. And I think my biggest issue, this is just my personal preference, is that why can't, I'm going to say this.
No, just say it.
Go ahead.
Why are gay men shamed so much by like straight men? Is it from like discomfort or is it just from like insecurity?
Remember what our
'Cause, like,
topic was?
Which one?
Emotional intelligence, being able to communicate openly.
Right, they do, but they just immediately like they go to the worst means. Like they'll insult a gay man rather than just ask him. And I don't know if that's just because I don't know, gay men are surrounded by majority women, or they're just comfortable with being
I
themselves.
feel like because there is like a slight bit of femininity with the stereotypical guise of being a gay man.
Yeah,
And that is so other to the typical straight man. That is not how they think they should be seen.
okay. But with women, so to speak, like if some woman is lesbian, I feel like this is from my personal experience, by the way. I'm not trying to say I'm claiming it, but for any woman, they're more comfortable around a woman who's okay with being with another woman versus a gay man being around a straight man. Do you get what I'm saying there?
Mm-hmm.
So what would you explain for that? Is because you guys communicate so well, or
It's the
Because more
Yeah.
guys, like it's so stereotypical on how like gay men cannot go with like straight men. I
Yeah.
feel just,
It's
like,
the-
For
so
the
much,
sense of
like,
safety.
it's the dynamic between the way the two genders relate. Because men relate differently with other men than women will go in the group to the bathroom. You're not gonna see that much with men.
oh yeah, I'm tough. I can handle a 1-on-12. Like what? Bro? Like what?
But you're not gonna whether it's dumb or not, you're not gonna see that with men.
Right.
So the different genders or sexes or whatever you want to call it, they relate with each other differently. So a man who sees a gay man, he's not gonna really be open to like the mannerisms. He's not gonna be open to the preconceived notions that he has about a gay man. He's not gonna be open to that. And sometimes you'll see media where you'll see a gay man pushing boundaries around a straight man. Whether that's not